Ellery Queen, The Tragedy of X. Greetings, one and all, to the most cursed, most cringiest corner of the internet. A YouTube channel content creator actively alienating everyone in both the analog and digital world. Well, welcome and good evening, you wonderful dice of all alignments. I am Lunar D8. Scene 8, Act 1. Offices of DeWitt and Longstreet, Saturday, September 5th, 9 a.m. The undercurrent of tension did not break surface as Inspector Thum crossed the floor of the branch office of DeWitt and Longstreet on Saturday morning. Clerks and customers looked up at his windy passage, startled, but apparently business was being conducted in the normal way. Thum's men, already on the scene, interfered with nothing. They loitered quietly, and that was all. In the private office at the rear marked John O. DeWitt, the inspector found the entire Longstreet party of the night before as assembled under the vigilant eye of Lieutenant Peabody. Sergeant Duffy's big blue back braced the glass door marked Harley Longstreet, leading to an adjoining office. Thum looked them over without enthusiasm, growled a greeting, beckoned Detective Jonas, and they entered the Longstreet sanctum. There Thum found, nervously perched on the edge of a chair, an interesting young lady, a large, well-cushioned brunette, good-looking in a vaguely cheap way. Does well-cushioned mean she has a giant tits? Thum sank into the swivel chair before the one large desk in the office. Jonas sat down in a corner, pencil and notebook ready. "I suppose you're Longstreet's secretary?" "Yes, sir. I'm Miss Platt. Anna Platt. I worked for Mr. Longstreet for 4.5 years as a sort of confidential secretary." Anna Platt's straight nose was unfashionably red at the tip. Her eyes were very damp. She dabbed at them with a limp handkerchief. "Oh, it's terrible." Sure, said the inspector, with a mirthless grin. "Now cut out the weeps, sister. Let's get down to business. You look like the sort of gal who would know her boss's business pretty thoroughly, and his private affairs, too. Tell me, how did Longstreet and DeWitt get along?" "They didn't. They were always squabbling." "And who usually won these battles?" "Oh, Mr. Longstreet. Mr. DeWitt always objected when he thought Mr. Longstreet was wrong, but then he always gave in finally." "What was Longstreet's attitude toward DeWitt?" Anna Platt twisted her fingers. "I suppose you want the truth. He bullied Mr. DeWitt all the time. He knew that Mr. DeWitt was the better businessman, and he didn't like it, so he just bore down on Mr. DeWitt and got things his own way, even if he was in the wrong and it cost the firm money." Inspector Thum's eyes wandered up and down the girl's figure. "You're a smart girl, Miss Platt. We're going to get along. Did DeWitt hate Longstreet?" She lowered her eyes demurely. "Yes, I think he did. I think I know why, too. It's an open scandal that Mr. Longstreet," her voice hardened, "had been having an affair with Mrs. DeWitt. A serious affair, and I'm sure Mr. DeWitt knew about it, although I never heard him refer to it to Mr. Longstreet or anyone else." "Did Longstreet love DeWitt's wife? How is it that he became engaged to Miss Brown?" "Mr. Longstreet didn't love anyone but himself, but he had scores of affairs all the time, and I suppose Mrs. DeWitt was just one of them. I guess, like all women, she thought he was crazy about her, and no one else. I'll tell you one thing, though," she went on, in a tone she might have employed to discuss the weather. "You'll be interested in this, Inspector, is it? Mr. Longstreet once made advances to Jean DeWitt right here in this room, and there was an awful argument between Mr. Lord, came in and saw what was happening and knocked Mr. Longstreet down. Then Mr. DeWitt came in quickly, and they sent me away. I don't know what happened later, but it seemed to be patched up. This was a couple of months ago." The inspector appraised her coolly. This was a witness after his own heart. Very nice, Miss Platt. Very nice indeed. And do you think Longstreet had some sort of hold on DeWitt? The girl hesitated. I'm not sure, but I do know that every once in a while Mr. Longstreet demanded large sums of money from Mr. DeWitt. Personal loans, he'd say, with a nasty laugh, and he'd get them every time. In fact, only a week ago he asked Mr. DeWitt for a loan of $25,000. And keep in mind, this was back in like the 30s. So that's like, I don't know what inflation has changed that to. Just saying. That's a lot of money back then. I says. Mr. DeWitt was awfully mad. I thought he'd have apoplexy. I shouldn't wonder, murmured Thum. They had quite a fuss in here, but he gave in as usual. Any threats? Well, Mr. DeWitt said this can't go on much longer, and he said that they had to have an understanding once and for all, or they'd both go to the wall. 25 grand, said the inspector. My God. What did Longstreet do with all that dough? This office alone must have given him a big income. Anna Platt's brown eyes flashed. Mr. Longstreet could spend money faster than anyone you ever saw, she said in a malicious tone. He gambled, lived high, played the races. The market isn't all of that gambling. He lost pretty nearly all the time. He certainly ate up his own income in no time, and when he ran short, he'd hit Mr. DeWitt for one of those loans. He's never given a cent of it back. I'm sure why I've been calling up his bank regularly to explain overdrawn checks. He cashed his bonds and real estate securities long ago. I'll bet he hasn't left a penny. Thum drummed thoughtfully on the glass-topped desk. So DeWitt never got his money back, and Longstreet was a sugar daddy sucker. Well. He stared at her, and she dropped her eyes suddenly in confusion. Miss Platt, he went on pleasantly, we're both grown people, and neither of us believes the nice story about the stork. Was there anything between you and Longstreet? You strike me as being a free and easy sort of secretary. She jumped up angrily. What do you mean? Sit down, sister, sit down. Thum grinned as she sank back into the chair. I thought so. Now, how long did you live with him? I didn't live with him, she snapped. We just went around together for about 2 years. Do I have to sit here just because you're a cop and be insulted? I'm a respectable girl. I'll have you know. Sure, said the inspector soothingly. Do you live with your parents? My parents live upstate. I thought so. I suppose he promised to marry you, too. Of course, just another good girl gone wrong. Threw you over for Mrs. DeWitt, did he? Well, she was wavering, studying the tiled floor sullenly. Well, yes. But you're a smart gal, nevertheless, continued Thum, with another admiring panoramic survey of her figure. Yes, sir. To have had an affair with a guy like Longstreet, to be given the air and still keep your job, that's genius, honey. She said nothing, and she felt that he was trying to bait her. She was clever enough to refuse the bait. Thum hummed a little tune, studied her carefully shingled hair in silence. When he spoke again, it was in a different tone, on different matters. He learned from her that on Friday afternoon, before Longstreet left the office for Cherry Brown's apartment at the Grant, Michael Collins had dashed into the office, purple with rage, and had accused Longstreet of double-crossing DeWitt, had been out at that time. The accusation was based, said Anna Platt, on Longstreet's advice to Collins to plunge on international metals. Collins had demanded with a curse that Longstreet make good the $50,000 Collins had irretrievably lost on the stock. Longstreet had seemed disturbed, but had pacified the Irishman by saying, Don't worry, Mike, and leave everything to me. I'll see that DeWitt pulls you through. Collins had demanded further that Longstreet settle the matter with DeWitt at once, but since DeWitt was out, Longstreet invited Collins to the engagement party later, promising to speak to DeWitt there at the first opportunity. Anna Platt had nothing else to offer. Inspector Thum excused her and summoned DeWitt into Longstreet's office. DeWitt was chalky but self-possessed. Thum said directly, I'm going to repeat a question I asked you last night, and I insist on an answer. Why did you hate your partner? I refuse to be bullied, Inspector Thumb. Then you won't answer? DeWitt pressed his lips together. Very well, DeWitt, said Thumb, but you're making the biggest mistake of your life. How did Mrs. DeWitt and Longstreet get along? Good friends, were they? Yes. And your daughter and Longstreet? There was nothing between them of an unpleasant nature. You're insulting. Then your family and Longstreet got along quite smoothly. Look here, shouted DeWitt, rising suddenly. What the devil are you driving at? The inspector smiled and kicked DeWitt's chair with one huge foot. Take it easy. Sit down. Were you and Longstreet equal partners? DeWitt subsided, eyes bloody. Yes, he said in a smothered voice. How long were you in business together? 12 years. How did you two happen to team up? We made our fortunes in South America before the war, mining venture. We returned to the States together and continued our affiliation in the brokerage business. You've been successful? Quite. Then why, continued the inspector in the same pleasant tone, if you were both successful and had fortunes to begin with, did Longstreet borrow money from you continually? DeWitt sat very still. Who told you that? I'm asking the questions, DeWitt. This is ridiculous. DeWitt bit a gray strand from his stiff mustache. I loaned money to him occasionally, but these were purely personal affairs, trivial sums. Do you call $25,000 a trivial sum? The frail little man twisted in his chair as if it had burned his hide. Why, that wasn't a loan. It was something personal. DeWitt, said Inspector Thumb, you're lying in your teeth. You've been paying Longstreet a great deal of money. You haven't been repaid. Probably never expected to see your money again. I want to know why, and I'll know if. DeWitt sprang from the chair with a shout. His face was contorted and purplish white. You're exceeding your authority. This thing had nothing to do with Longstreet's death. I tell you, No melodramatics. Wait outside. DeWitt's mouth remained open. He was grasping for breath. Then he shrank within himself, his rage dissipating. He squared his shoulders, shook himself, and left the room. Thumb watched him puzzled. The man presented contradictory sides. He called for Mrs. Fern DeWitt. The interview of Mrs. DeWitt was short and sterile. The woman, faded, bitter, defiant, was as peculiar as her husband. She seemed to be nursing a deep and warping emotion. No, she knew nothing at all. She coldly denied any relationship other than the mere friendship with Longstreet. She scoffed at the insinuation that Longstreet had been attracted to Jean DeWitt. He was always interested in more mature women, she said icily. As for Cherry Brown, Mrs. DeWitt knew nothing about her, she said, except that she was a scheming, low actress, that Longstreet had been infatuated by a pretty face. Did she have any suspicion that her husband, Mr. DeWitt, was being blackmailed? Oh no, how silly. Thum silently cursed. This woman was a virago. She had vinegar in her veins. I remember the word virago from Higurashi, Mion's grandma. He hammered at her, threatened her, tried to cajole her, but aside from eliciting the fact that she and DeWitt had been married for 6 years and that Jean DeWitt was DeWitt's daughter by a former marriage, Thum discovered nothing. He dismissed her. As the woman rose to go, she took from her handbag a vanity case, opened it, and began to powder her already heavily powdered face. Her hand trembled. The mirror of the case shivered into fragments on the floor. Her aplomb fled. She paled beneath the rouge. Her hand flew to her breast, making the sign of the cross. With horror in her eyes, she muttered, Madre de Dios, Mother of God. In the same instant, however, she recovered herself, flashed a guilty look at Inspector Thum, minced around the broken glass, and hurried out. Inspector laughed, picked up the fragments, tossed them on his desk. He went to the door and called Franklin Ahern. Ahern was a large man, well preserved for his age. He carried himself erectly. Good humor lurked at the corners of his mouth. His eyes were gentle and bright. "Sit down, Mr. Ahern. How long have you known Mr. DeWitt? Let me see. Since I have lived in West Inglewood 6 years. How well did you know Longstreet? Not well at all, Inspector. True, we all lived in the same general locality, but I am a retired engineer and have had no business relations with either man. However, DeWitt and I took to each other at once. I'm sorry to say I didn't like Longstreet at all. A deceptive person, Inspector. Bluff, hearty, the usual He-Man thing, you know, but inside rotten to the core. I don't know who killed him, but I'll warrant it was because he deserved it. Besides the point, said Thum dryly, what did you think of Cherry Brown's accusation last night? Sheer nonsense, Ahern crossed his legs and looked into Thum's eyes. Wasn't that a ridiculous thing to say? Only a hysterical woman would have made such a preposterous accusation. I've known John DeWitt for years. There isn't a mean or vicious bone in his body. He's generous to a fault, literally a gentleman. He simply wouldn't be capable of murder, and I dare say there's no one outside his family who knows him better than I. We play chess 3 or 4 times a week. Chess, eh? Thum looked interested. Now that's something. Good chess player, are you? Ahern chuckled. Alas for fame. Don't you read the papers? Inspector, you are speaking to the champion chess player of these parts. Why, only 3 weeks ago I won the open tournament for the championship of the Atlantic seaboard. You don't say, exclaimed Thum. Glad to meet a champ. I once shook Jack Dempsey's hand. I didn't know Dempsey was that old. By the way, Dempsey was a inspiration for Mike Tyson. How's DeWitt at the game? Ahern leaned forward, speaking with enthusiasm. Inspector Thum, his play for a rank amateur is simply amazing. I've urged him for years to take their game up seriously, enter tournament play, but he's shy, reserved, dreadfully sensitive. You know, mentally he's quick as lightning, plays almost instinctively, doesn't dawdle over his game. Oh, we've had some interesting chess together. Nervous disposition, eh? Very quick and everything. He really needs a rest. Frankly, I think Longstreet worried the life out of him. Although naturally we never discussed his business. Now that Longstreet's dead, I'm sure DeWitt will be a new man. I guess he will at that, said Thum. That's all, Mr. Ahern. Ahern rose with alacrity. He consulted a large silver watch. Goodness, time for my stomach pill. He beamed on the inspector. I have a peevish stomach. I am a vegetarian, you know. The result of eating canned bully in my young days as an engineer. Well, sir, good day. He strode solidly out. Thum snorted to Jonas. If he has stomach trouble, I'm president of the United States, nothing but a hypochondriac. He went to the door and requested Cherry Brown to come in. It was a completely altered actress who faced the inspector across the desk a moment later. She seemed to have recovered her natural gaiety of spirits. Her face was carefully made up. Bluish color tinged her eyelids. She was dressed in modish black. Her eyes and her answers were decisive. She had met Longstreet at a ball 5 months before. He had rushed her, she said, for several months, and they had decided to announce their engagement. He had promised to change his will. She was remarkably sure of this in her favor. Immediately after their engagement, she seemed childishly certain that Longstreet had been a nabob, had left millions. She caught sight of the broken glass on the desk and turned her head away with a little frown. She admitted that her accusation to DeWitt the night before had been prompted by hysteria. No, she had really seen nothing in the streetcar and had made the statement because of her woman's intuition. Thum grunted. But Harley told me every so often that DeWitt hated him. She insisted in her carefully musical voice. Why? She shrugged, rather prettily, and favored the inspector with a deep, coquettish look as he held the door open for her. Christopher Lord stalked into the office. Thumb stood squarely before him, and they stared eye for eye. Yes, Lord said firmly. He had knocked Longstreet down and didn't regret it one bit. The fellow was rotten and had it coming. He had tendered his resignation to DeWitt, his immediate superior, but DeWitt had placated him. He had, Lord continued, allowed the matter to drop because he generally liked DeWitt, and because, on second thought, if Longstreet ever repeated his dirty advances to Jean, he, Lord, would be on a scene to protect her. Lord Fauntleroy stuff, eh? Murmured Thum. Well now, DeWitt strikes me as being a man of forceful character. Why was he so anxious to patch up this affair, which touched his own daughter? Lord jammed his big hands into his pockets. Inspector, he replied shortly, I'll be damned if I know. It isn't like him at all. In everything except his contacts with Longstreet, he's been a keen, alert, independent man of high principles. He's one of the shrewdest brokers on the street, immensely jealous of his daughter's welfare and reputation. I should think he would haul off and slap that big ape down at daring to manhandle his daughter, but he didn't. He temporized. Why, I'll be hanged if I know. You'd say, then, that his attitude toward Longstreet throughout hasn't been consistent with DeWitt's character. He certainly hasn't been himself, Inspector. DeWitt and Longstreet continued. Lord had quarreled frequently in their private offices. Why, he shrugged. Mrs. DeWitt and Longstreet, the blond young man, looked politely off into space. Michael Collins, Lord, said that he himself worked under DeWitt and therefore knew little about Longstreet's contacts. Was it possible that DeWitt himself would be ignorant of Longstreet's private advice to Collins? Knowing Longstreet, said Lord, very likely. Thum sat down on the edge of the desk. Did Longstreet ever make another pass at Jean DeWitt, young man? Yes, replied Lord grimly. I wasn't there at the time, but Anna Platt told me about it later. It seems that Jean had repulsed Longstreet and run out of the office. Did you do anything about it? What do you think I am? Of course I did. I went to Longstreet and laid the law down to him. Quarreled? Well, we had a damned sizzling conversation. That's all, said Thum abruptly. Send Mrs. DeWitt, and Jean DeWitt, however, could add nothing to the testimony with which Detective Jonas was covering page after page in his notebook. She defended her father with spirit. Thum listened gloomily and sent her back to the adjoining office. Mr. Imperial, a tall, ample frame of the Swiss, filled the doorway. He was dressed with painful correctness. His sleek Van Dyke beard seemed to impress Jonas at least, who regarded the man with eyes distinctly awed. Imperial's bright eyes fixed themselves on the broken glass on the desk. He made a little mow of distaste and turned back to Thum, bowing courteously. He had been DeWitt's good friend, he said, for 4 years, having met DeWitt in Europe. When DeWitt was touring the Swiss Alps, they had become interested in each other. Mr. DeWitt has been most kind, he said, with a flash of his perfect teeth. Each of the 4 times since then that I have come to your country on business for my firm, I have been Mr. DeWitt's guest for the duration of my stay. What's the name of your firm? The Swiss Precision Instruments Company. I am general manager of the establishment. I see, Mr. Imperial. Can you offer any explanation of this crime? Imperial spread his well-kept hands. I have absolutely nothing to offer, Inspector. I knew Mr. Longstreet only superficially. Thum dismissed Imperial as the Swiss passed through the doorway. Thum's face hardened, and he barked, Collins. The big Irishman lurched into the office, his full lips drooping with resentment. His eyes to the inspector questions were snappish, ill-humored, grudging. Thum walked up to him, grasped his arm in a vicious grip. Now you listen to me, you oily son of a politician, he said. I've been waiting to tell you this. I know damned well that you tried to pull strings last night to get out of coming here today to testify. But you're here anyway, aren't you? Hell of a public servant you are. Now, you said last night that you dashed up here looking for Longstreet to explain that phony tip of his, that you didn't have any words. I let it pass last night, but I'm not accepting that explanation this morning. Give it to me straight now, Collins. Collins' body was quivering with suppressed rage. He shook himself savagely free of Thume's grip. Smart cop, aren't you? He snarled. What do you think I did? Kissed him? Sure, I bawled him out. May his lousy soul rot in hell. He ruined me. Thume grinned at Jonas. Got that, didn't you, Jonah? He turned mildly back to the Irishman. Had damn good cause to put him away, didn't you? Collins broke into an ugly laugh. Smarter and smarter, I suppose. I had that cork full of needles already. Waiting for the market to drop? Go back to a beat? Thume, you're too dumb for your job. Thume blinked, but he merely said, How is DeWitt? How is it DeWitt didn't know about Longstreet's tip to you? That's what I'd like to know, said Collins nastily. What kind of bucket shop is this anyway? But I'll tell you one thing, Thume. He leaned closer, the cords of his neck livid. This DeWitt is going to make good that bum steer, or I'll know the reason why. Take it down, Jonas, take it down, murmured the inspector. This guy is putting the rope around his own neck. Collins, me lad, you invested 50 grand in metals. Where'd you get all that dough to lose? You can't plunge $50,000 bills on that measly sour of yours. Mind your own business, Thume. I'll break you for this. Thume's large hand clamped itself in Collins' coat above his chest. He yanked, and Collins found his face 1 inch from Thume's. And I'll break your neck if you don't keep a civil tongue in your ugly mug, growled the inspector. Now get out of here, heel. He flung the man away from him, and Collins, inarticulate with rage, stamped out of the office. Thume shook himself, cursed expertly, and called for the dagger-mustached Pollux. The actor had a lean, wolfish Italian face. He was nervous, and Thume pinned him with a caloric eye. Listen, you, Thume ran a broad finger under the edge of the his collar. I haven't much time to spend on you, and I don't mind telling you so. What do you know about this Longstreet murder? Pollux, his eyes glittering sideways at the broken glass fragments on the desk, snarled to himself in Italian. He was afraid of the inspector, but bellicose, he said in a flat, theatrical voice, I didn't know a thing. You've got nothing on me, or on Cherry either. Innocent, eh? Just a milk-fed babe? Listen, Inspector. This Longstreet heel had it coming to him. He would have made Cherry's life miserable. He's known as the prize sucker of Broadway. The wise guy saw this coming, I'm telling you. Know Cherry well? Who, me? We're pals. Do anything for her with you, wouldn't you? What the hell do you mean? Just what I said. Bear it. Beat it. Pollux flounced from the room, and Jonas came to life, rising and mincing across the floor. An excellent pantomime. Thume snorted, went to the door, and called DeWitt. Another minute or two. DeWitt had calmed. He acted as if nothing had happened. As he crossed the threshold, his quick alert eyes fastened on the smashed glass. Who broke that? He asked sharply. Notice everything, don't you? Your wife? DeWitt sat down and sighed. Very unfortunate. I'll never hear the end of this. She'll blame everything on that broken mirror for weeks. Superstitious, is she? Dreadfully so. She's half Spanish by birth, you know. Castilian mother, and while her father was Protestant, her mother contrived to bring her up as a Catholic, despite Madre's own defection from the church. Fern's a problem sometimes. Thumb flipped one of the broken slivers off the desk. I take it you don't believe in such things? I hear you're a pretty hard-headed businessman, DeWitt. DeWitt regarding him with disarming directness. My friends have been talking, I see, he said. No, Inspector Thume, I don't believe in that sort of rot. Thumb said abruptly, What I really called you in for, DeWitt, was to get your assurance of cooperation with my men and the investigators in the district attorney's office. Don't worry about that. You know we'll have to look into Longstreet's business as well as private correspondence, his bank accounts, and all that truck. You'll see that my operatives posted here will be given every possible assistance. You may depend upon it, Inspector. Good enough. Inspector Thumb dismissed all the waiting members of the group in the outer office, issued some crackling instructions to Lieutenant Peabody and a studious-looking young man who was one of the district attorney Bruno's assistants, and trudged out of the DeWitt and Longstreet offices. His face was very sad. Okay. Scene 9, The Hamlet, Tuesday, September 8th, 12:10 p.m. Quasi threw small logs on the fire. It spurted up, and District Attorney Bruno studied the physiognomy of Mr. Drury Lane by its flickering light. Lane was smiling faintly. Inspector Thum had lapsed into silence, frowning. "Quite all, Inspector?" Thum grunted, whereupon Lane's eyelids fell, and instantly, by some alchemy of muscular control, he seemed asleep. The inspector fidgeted. "If there's anything I haven't made clear," his tone implied that even if there were something he had not made clear, he was sure that the omission would make little difference in the final result. Inspector Thum was a cynical man. Bruno chuckled as the long, still figure of the actor did not move. "He can't hear you, Thum. His eyes are closed." Thum looked astonished. He scratched his jutting jaw and sat forward on the edge of the tall Elizabethan chair. Drury Lane opened his eyes. He looked quickly at his visitors, and so suddenly that Bruno recoiled. Sprang to his feet, he half turned. The firelight silhouetted his sharp, clean profile. "Several questions, Inspector. Has there been a development of interest from Dr. Schilling's autopsy?" "Nothing," said Thum despondently. "The nicotine poison analysis confirmed the medical examiner's preliminary report, but we haven't made an inch of progress in tracing the poison or its source." "And," added the district attorney, Lane's head jerked toward him by instinct, "neither the cork nor the needles proved traceable. At least, we haven't traced them yet. Have you a copy of Dr. Schilling's autopsy report, Mr. Bruno?" The district attorney produced an official-looking paper and handed it to Lane, who took it closer to the fire and bent over it. His eyes gleamed weirdly as he read. He read aloud, rapidly and disjointedly. "Death from apnea. Blood fluid and characteristically blackish in color. Fluid. Paralysis of central nervous system, especially area-controlling respiration. Undoubtedly result of acute nicotine poisoning. Lungs, liver show hyperamia. Brain shows marked congestion. Condition of lungs indicates the victim possessed decided tobacco tolerance. Certainly heavy tobacco user. Tolerance, length, and time required to cause death with standard lethal dose, which in non-tobacco addicts would kill instantly or in less than 1 minute. Physical marks, slightly contusion of the left kneecap, probably the result of dying fall. 9-year-old appendicitis scar, tip of a neurolaris or ring finger of right hand missing, probably for 20 or more years. Sugar content normal. Abnormal alcohol content of brain. Body that of dissipated man of middle age who once possessed powerful physique, rugged constitution, probably great resistance. Height 6 feet 1.5 inches. Weight post-mortem 211 pounds. And so on and so on. Muttered Lane. Returning the document to District Attorney Bruno. "Thank you, sir." He strode back to the fire, leaning against his huge oak mantel. "Nothing was found in the private room at the car barn?" "No." "I assume also that Longstreet's house at West Englewood has been thoroughly gone over." I'm sleepy. "Oh, sure." Thum was restless now. His eyes gleamed at Bruno in sly, half-humorous boredom. "Nothing there. We did find a lot of correspondence. Letters from Longstreet's lady friends, mostly all dated before March. Receipted and unpaid bills. The usual junk. The servants couldn't give us a lead. I take it that his own town apartments have been also examined." "You take it right." We're not overlooking that bet. We've looked up all of his old flames, too, but nothing's come of it. Lane deliberately surveyed his two visitors. His eyes were serene and thoughtful. Inspector Thum, you are entirely satisfied that the needle cork was slipped in Longstreet's pocket in the car and not before? Thum said instantly, that's one thing we're dead certain of. Not the slightest doubt. Incidentally, I thought you might be interested in the cork itself. I brought it along. Excellent, Inspector. You have anticipated me. The full voice was eager now. Thum took the cork coat pocket and a small glass jar, tightly covered, and handed it to the actor. I'd advise you not to open it, Mr. Lane. It's mighty dangerous. Lane held the jar up to the firelight, studied its contents. For a long moment, the cork riddled with needles, whose points and eyes protruded all sides, stained darkly, seemed innocent enough. Lane smiled, returning the jar to the inspector. A homemade weapon, of course, and, as Dr. Schilling said, an ingenious one. Just before the occupants of the car were ordered out in the car barn, it was still raining with violence. Sure enough, coming down in buckets. Now tell me, Inspector, were there any laborers on the car? Thum's eyes opened wide. Bruno wrinkled his forehead in astonishment. What do you mean, laborers? Ditch diggers, construction men, plasterers, bricklayers, you know. Thum seemed bewildered. Why, no, they were all of office workers. I don't see. And everyone was searched thoroughly. Yes, said the inspector in a scathing tone. Believe me, Inspector, casting aspersions on the efficiency of your auxiliaries is furthest from my thought. As a confirmation, sir, once again, nothing unusual was found on the persons of the occupants of the car, or in the car itself, or in the rooms of the barn after everyone left anywhere. I think I brought that out, Mr. Lane, replied Thum coldly. Nevertheless, nothing that would seem out of place, considering the weather, the season, the type of persons involved. I don't get you. For example, you found no topcoats, evening clothes, gloves, things like that? Oh, well, one man had a raincoat, but I examined it myself, and it was okay, as I told you. Otherwise, no articles of the sort you mentioned. I can absolutely vouch for it. Drury Lane's eyes glistened now. He looked intently from one to the other of his visitors. He stretched to his full height, and the shadow he cast upon the old wall brooded over him. Mr. Bruno, what is your opinion of your office? Bruno smiled wryly. Obviously, Mr. Lane, we haven't particularly well-defined ideas. The case is complicated by a plethora of motives, applying to many figures involved. Mrs. DeWitt, for example, undoubtedly had been Longstreet's mistress and hated him because he had thrown her over for Cherry Brown. Fern DeWitt's conduct throughout has been, well, peculiar. Michael Collins, whose political reputation is none too savory, is a scheming, unscrupulous man of the hot-headed variety. Certainly in his own mind he had incentive. Young Kit Lord might, in storybook fashion, have acted the avenging knight-errant and killed to protect the honor of his lady love. Bruno sighed, but tackling it all in all, Thum and I both inclined towards DeWitt. DeWitt. Lane's lips framed the name judiciously. His eyes were fixed unblinkingly on the district attorney's mouth. Please proceed. The trouble is, said Bruno with a fretful frown, there isn't the slightest shred of evidence directly implicating DeWitt or anyone else for that matter. Thum grumbled. Anyone could have slipped the cork into Longstreet's pocket, but only a member of his party. But any member on the train, by the way, we've investigated the kit and caboodle of them, and we can find absolutely no connection between Longstreet and any of the other occupants of the car. Nothing at all to go on. That, concluded the district attorney, is why the inspector and I have come to you, Mr. Lane. Your really brilliant analysis of the Kramer case, pointing out what was under our noses all the time, made us feel that you might be able to duplicate the feat. Lane waved his arm. The Kramer case, elementary, Mr. Bruno. He stared thoughtfully at his visitors. A shrouded silence enveloped them now. Quasi, perched in his corner, was watching his master with complete absorption. Bruno and Thuum glanced covertly at each other. They both seemed disappointed. The inspector half grinned in a jeering way, as plainly as if he had said, "There, I told you so." Bruno's shoulders twitched in the suspicion of a shrug. They looked up simultaneously at the bell sound and Drury Lane's voice. "But surely, gentlemen," he was saying, regarding them with gentle amusement, "it must be apparent to you that the course of action is clear." The quiet words had electric effect. Bruno's jaw dropped. Thuum shook his head slightly, like a fighter attempting to gather his senses after a hard blow. He jumped to his feet. "Clear," he shouted. "My God, Mr. Lane, do you realize what you—" "Peace, Inspector Thuum," murmured Drury Lane. "Like the ghost of Hamlet's father, you start like a guilty thing upon a fearful summons. Yes, gentlemen, the course is clear. If everything Inspector Thuum has told me is true, then I believe the guilt lies in one direction." "Well, I'll be eternally damned," panted the inspector. He peered at Lane out of overhung, unbelieving eyes. "Do you mean," asked the district attorney weakly, "that from Inspector Thuum's mere recital of the facts, you know who killed Longstreet?" The Aquiline nose quivered. "I said I believe I know. You will have to take me out on trust, Mr. Bruno." "Oh," said both men in a relieved voice. They calmed at once and exchanged significant glances. "I appreciate your suspicions, gentlemen, but on my word—" "I appreciate your suspicions, gentlemen, but on my word, they are unfounded." Lane's voice became charming, persuasive. He handled it like a rapier. I prefer, for pressing reasons, not to commit myself further at this point on the possible identity of your unknown quarry. Shall we call him X from now on? And that, gentlemen, despite the fact that I could make what seems to me a positive disclosure of complicity." "But, Mr. Lane," began Bruno in a sharper tone, "a delay, after all—" Drury Lane stood motionless in the reddish light like an Indian. The amusement had fled his nostrils and lips now, and his face was carved out of Parian marble. His lips barely moved, but his voice came extraordinarily distinct. "A delay? Dangerous, of course, but not half so dangerous. You will have to take my word for it as a premature disclosure." Thuum stood sullenly by. He seemed disgusted. Bruno opened his mouth. "Don't press me at a time like this, please." "At this time, please. Now, may I ask a favor of you, gentlemen?" The lingering disbelief on the faces of his visitors brought an impatient note into his voice. "Will you send me by mail or messenger a clear photograph of your corpse? In the life, of course." "Oh, all right," mumbled Bruno. He shifted from one foot to the other absurdly, like a sulky schoolboy. "You will also keep me informed, Mr. Bruno," continued Lane in the same unimpassioned voice, "of developments. If," he paused perceptibly, "you have not already regretted consulting me." He regarded them for a moment, and something of the old amusement crept back into his eyes. Both men muttered unconvincing denials. "Quasi will take any telephone messages in my presence or absence." Lane reached up above the smoky mantel and jerked a bell cord. The rosy pot-bellied little old man in livery popped into the room like a genie. "Will you honor me by lunching with me, gentlemen?" They shook their heads emphatically. "They then show Mr. Bruno and Inspector Thuum to their car, Falstaff. Remember that they are to be welcome at the hamlet at all times. Notify me the moment either or both arrive. Good day, Mr. Bruno, he bowed, a swift inclination of his torso. Inspector Thum. Without a word, District Attorney Bruno and Inspector Thum followed in the wake of the butler at the door as if pulled by one string. They paused to look back. Mr. Drury Lane was standing before his old fire in the midst of his old and unbelievable possessions, smiling courteously in farewell. Oh, and that's the end of Act 1. So next, we Act 2, Scene 1. Okay, next time, guys. I need to try to go for a little bit shorter videos than this. I feel so tired. I feel like I'm ready to fall asleep. I feel exhausted. Anyway, good night.